Hundreds of years ago, the nomadic Luxon Armada trained massive turtles to bear weapons of war across the Jade Sea. Now, you can raise your own turtle from an adorable hatchling to a cannon-carrying mount. Modern siege turtles are equipped with the latest Jade tech advancements, including powerful jump jets and health boosters. Use these tools to lift your turtle across rough terrain and slam your enemies for massive damage. Best of all, there's plenty of room for a friend. Take your favorite siege engineer out for a ride and make the most of the turtle's cannons.
Hi Tyria, welcome to Guild Chat, and thank you all for joining us on a Wednesday. I'm your host Ruby, and yeah, we're doing it kind of on a weird day because here in America, we have the Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow, so we're going to be on break tomorrow on Friday. But we still wanted to give you this show and give you some more information on what's coming up next week. The fourth open beta event for End of Dragons is next Tuesday, starting on November 30th. You're going to get to come in and play all 9 End of Dragons Elite Specializations, and you're going to get to try the Siege Turtle. So we're going to give you a little preview of some Siege Turtle gameplay today with our first dev guest. But stick around after we show you the Siege Turtle gameplay because Cal is with us too, and he's going to give you all a preview of some of
the CMC himself.
That was so good.
Classic.
Perfect. So Cal's going to give you a preview of the changes that we've made to the Elite Specializations for End of Dragons. After that, we have a couple more things that I'm going to leave for the end. So let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to get through. Let's meet our first dev guest, but Cal and his water kind of got in front of you. So
No,
hi, Nick.
It's all good. So I'm not Cal. I'm Nick. Hi. I'm a game designer here at ArenaNet, working on End of Dragons, worked on Xingje and some other stuff. And I'm here to, as Ruby said, talk about the turtle baby.
All right.
Not the baby, but like, you know, our good boy.
Turtle babies,
the very
turtle
large
babies
lad.
are later.
Yes,
All right.
turtle babies are later.
So let's start. Let's take a look at this guy.
Yeah.
All right, so this is our Siege Turtle, our first 2-player mount. This focuses on cooperation and working together. There's a driver's seat and a gunner's seat. Everybody has their own roles to play. However, if you are more of a solo player, you can still use the turtle because there's a driver skill that we'll talk about later. A couple things about the Siege Turtle that you can look for once you've got your hands on this guy yourself. When you get closer to the turtle, whether you're in the other person's party or not, he gets kind of transparent and there is not collision. So you can't park your turtles on top of things and block them. We're not going to have turtle roadblocks and traffic jams. You also need to be in the person's party to board the turtle. So if I were not in Nick's party, don't kick me. If I were not in Nick's party, I would not have this board turtle option. And if I left the party, I would get booted off the turtle. Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple things in there just to make this as smooth as humanly possible. If you're not familiar with Siege Turtles from Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, back in Guild Wars factions, this was a thing with the Luxon faction. They raised and trained Siege Turtles for battle with their big cannons. They had turtle hatcheries all over the world. Gala Hatchery was one of the most familiar ones. That was some gameplay in Guild Wars factions. And a little fun fact, Siege Turtles like to eat carrots and fish. That's their favorite food. Thank you for that, Indigo. All right, that said, let's get started. Let's do some turtle gameplay.
Yeah, so first off, I'm going to talk about movement, which as you can see, this is as fast as the turtle goes. Big boy, but slow, is what it would actually be the truth if I wasn't lying. No, this is just the walking animation, which we wanted to demonstrate because, you know, every mount has a walking animation. I think that this one was actually really well done. Props to the animation team.
Yeah.
But no, it does move faster than that. In reality, because this is the only mount, like the only creature mount that we're developing for this expansion, we tried to make sure that, we and the team tried to make sure that the movement of the mount felt like a strong utility and like you wanted to use this mount over other mounts depending on what your situations were. So it has a like it has a horizontal jump, but it's like a lower horizontal jump than the Raptor. It's got a high vertical jump compared to the Raptor and the Jackal, but it's lower than the Springer. It increases its speed and ramps up, which you're seeing me do somewhat right now, very similar to the Roller Beetle, but has a lower maxed out speed, of course. Which you actually, this bar right here, you'll be able to see is the momentum speedometer, which basically shows how fast your turtle is going and when you have hit its max speed, because it will be fully filled out. Along with that, as I mentioned, there is a vertical jump, and that is a new unique thing to the turtle. So as you can see, we have these little like jets here and all this text strapped onto the turtle. And the reason for that is because the turtle actually has the ability to use these as sort of like rocket jets. And what those jets allow the turtle to do is basically jump. So like if you need to get to higher areas, or if you like, need to glide for a little bit, you can utilize those jets to gain some height and or stabilize and keep at your current height as long as the endurance bar has endurance. Once it's out, that's basically the fuel meter. So you will run out and it will dissipate. Besides that, he's just a big tanky boy. And that's pretty much everything for the movement right now. I think the next thing to talk about is actually going to be the combat skills. So as you can see here, we have a normal engage skill, and of course, as of a little while ago, we've added to the 5 slots all of the endurance skills for each of the mounts, and this mount is no different. This one will allow you, when you click on it or utilize it, to use its jump jets. But with this, what you have the ability to do is you slam onto the ground like that, and it will do a brief point-blank AoE in front of the player, like a little pizza cone. That will, there we go, yeah. That will do defiance damage as well as just a standard amount of damage. And what's cool about that as well is that you can actually utilize the jump jets to slam down, and the higher you are when you slam down, the more base damage you will do. So besides that, what you'll also be able to see is that we actually have all of the mastery skills from seasons 4 and 5 that you can utilize within the mounts kit as well. There are some additions to them that there are some additions and integrations of them that you will be able to see that help make the turtle more effective for players, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But for right now, that's pretty much everything for the driver side of things. Ruby, since you're the gunner on this, do you want to talk a little bit about the gunner's side?
Can you give me, I want to cause a little bit of trouble. Can you give me something to cause trouble with?
Yeah.
All right, let's get in a fight,
Ask
shall we?
and you shall receive.
All right. So we're waiting on some enemies now. Nick is making trouble happen.
I'm trying to.
The problem is, like when
go.
someone's watching or when you're in a hurry, that's when the typos happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Okay, but you did it.
Yeah, we got
All
some
right.
baddies.
So I got Turtle Siege, which is my turtle cannons. And this is a ground targeted skill. You can see down here that right now I have 2 stacks of ammo. Stacks of ammo. It does not mean 500 ammo. Don't get excited. I have 2 left. We are
currently just
fighting. Yeah,
folks.
I'm just it's just running in circles and dropping cannon siege on these guys. So this is. It's not. Okay, I can't do this anymore because now I'm distracted. I'm like, wait, we have to kill them all. It's super important.
We do, yeah. And like, I'm also trying to keep them alive because something that people will probably notice right now that you don't notice with other mounts is that the slam that we're utilizing actually doesn't dismount you, which is something that's a bit different. We wanted this mount to be able to be utilized in combat. So what we did was we removed the disengage on the engage skill, which I know doesn't really make much sense. Also, yes, I am going to cheat and heal to keep us on the mount.
Appreciate it.
Because we're fighting a lot of people.
It is, but that's okay.
Yeah, but what you're seeing is that there's a lot of damage that we can provide either with the gunner or with the mount itself. And the mount, we gave it enough health where we could actually allow it to be tanky, as well as an actual defiance bar in and of itself so that way it can withstand some damage of its own.
Yeah. So I want to point to my ammo now that you've been running around a little
Yeah.
bit. Ammo, you start with 5, you run out. It's not just gone forever. Movement regens that. There are other skills that also regen. There are other ways to regen that we will talk about later. But the faster Nick moves, the more ammo that I get back. So if you're running around, you're kiting, hey, Hammer Master, all right. I'm just randomly getting achievements over here. But yeah, the faster Nick zooms around, the more ammo that we have. So you can work together. This is part of that cooperation that we were talking about before. You can work together to keep that ammo going, keep out of the enemy's way.
Yeah.
And also, one note, the numbers are not final.
Yeah, so the numbers are not final here. What you're going to be seeing in the beta is that the numbers that you're going to be seeing within the beta and fighting against the Corteria and expansion enemies are going to be different than the ones that you're seeing right now from us. Our numbers probably look a little bit lower. It looks a little bit less damagey. That's because of balances that we're currently doing to the expansion armies and things like that. Besides that,
Actually, I want to note real quick, too, that I don't know if you guys could tell, while Nick was running around, we're running through the enemies that I've killed, and I was just kind of looting as you go. You can loot from the mount. You don't have to dismount to take care of that.
Yeah, that's both for the gunner and for the driver. Like, as you can see right now, I'm going to be able to just
Everybody
take
gets
all
their
of
loot.
all the stuff, yeah.
Get all the things. Vacuum it up, Nick. Do you want to talk about the speedometer a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So going back to what Ruby was talking about earlier with the ammo generation and regeneration, the players, this speedometer doesn't only just show how fast you're going, it also shows how much additional recharge you're getting. So as you can see, it's broken out between green and red. The way that this works out is that while it's in green, the recharge is at a certain threshold. Once it hits red, it will be even faster, and that kind of maxes out what the base regeneration addition is, or regeneration reduction. Kat, what's the appropriate terminology for that?
What?
Generation? Endurance regeneration?
Sure.
Yeah.
Lock it in.
Lock it in. Ship it. But the long and short of it is basically just that the faster you run, the more ammo that you'll get, or the faster the ammo will regenerate, and the speedometer is just there as a way to kind of visually show and indicate what that looks like.
So speaking of speed, do we want to go super zoomy?
We should definitely go super zoom.
All right, so I have this cool 5 skill here. This is my overdrive skill.
What does this overdrive skill do, Ruby?
So overdrive,
I'm curious.
this boosts acceleration, pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It boosts your acceleration, max speed is more, boosts your turning ability. And I'm going to let the driver show that, because the faster you go, also you're going to drift a little bit. This is kind of like roller beetle.
Yeah, it's
Just a
got that
little.
roller beetle drift. You know, it's a very big, a very heavy creature, so we wanted to kind of help demonstrate that. So it does slide a little bit depending on the speed that you're going and the turn radius that you give it when you do decide to turn.
And do it again.
Yeah. Also, something to note is that that does also help the siege ammo regeneration.
Yeah. I'm going to give Mark a quick note not to show my monitor, because we need to keep our secrets, so we'll just stay on Nick while I do a thing.
Yeah, and
we're underwater now.
we are underwater now. Actually, I don't know if anybody noticed that animation. Let me.
it was
I'm gonna
great.
be a dirty cheater. I'm doing dirty cheater stuff.
How dare you?
But what we'll actually see in a second is that the turtle actually also has a very unique landing animation and transition animation, where it's like you will actually hit the water, everything slows down, and then you sink. And this is something that's really interesting about the turtle, is that it doesn't swim, it just sinks to the bottom of the water. And what's also really interesting about it, and a bit novel actually, is that the turtle walks around on the ground surfaces of every single water area within the game. So like, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't swim, and going back to what you were talking about earlier, where it's more of a utility mount and it has a little bit of everything, similar to the upgraded skimmer, this is another mount that you can utilize underwater. And yeah, what I actually really like about it is that with mounts in the game, right, with gliding, those additions kind of reshaped the way that you think about those specific areas in the traversals. What I found with the turtle as well, at least for myself, is that it kind of changes the way you look at all of the underwater areas. So like whether it's in Corteria or Path of Fire or even in Den of Dragons, just being able to walk around at the base level of a map kind of changes the game, at least for me. That's the way I see it. So I'm excited for players to be able to see that and hopefully, experience it and maybe hopefully have the same thoughts.
Yeah. So I do love that the turtle can walk around underwater. I love the animations, but I also love that okay, hello, my screen is full of turtle. Suddenly it's just turtles everywhere. I also want to talk a little bit about the combat underneath water because you can still do that. I need you to take me a little bit closer to that hermit crab that I have targeted over there, please.
You got it.
Please. Oh, wait, no. Okay, well,
Oh, there's another one right there.
yes, we can get that one.
Actually, I think we can both hurt it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so underwater is not ground targeted, it is enemy targeted. I don't want to kill that koi, that's just kind of like stomping a fly. Can you give me, I need another hermit crab, there was just one.
I'm looking. I'm trying.
We're trying to find enemies so hard, you all.
That one.
While you're trying to find me an enemy, I also want to note that you're going to be able to mount and dismount the siege turtle while you're underwater. That's not just, oh, you have to be on dry land or it doesn't work.
Yeah, not
You know
just
what?
that, but like
That
also
koi.
the gunner can hop into and out of the another person's siege turtle as well. So it's like it's not just that the main person can mount and dismount, but also the gunner can hop in and out.
I'm doing like mass damage to these creatures because they're the only ones I could find.
Yeah, poor, I'm sorry, Koi.
I'm sorry, Koi.
Got it
I'm
for
so
the stream.
sorry. It's fine. He'll respawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else to note, I think there's like, as you mentioned, there's a difference between the ground version, which has actual ground targeting, very similar to our other skills, versus the click target. And the reason for that is just that we wanted to make sure that it's a bit more like accessible and like the ease of access, ease of use for everybody while they're using these things within the water, because it is a bit harder to use ground targeting skills in the water.
It really is.
Yeah.
I also want to note that you're getting XP for my hard work
Yeah.
siege cannoning koi.
Yeah, that is definitely something else to note. Is that I think because we're in the same party, anything that you do, I will get credit for to a certain extent, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that actually also might be beneficial to get out of this water, which
Yes, please.
yeah, the best way for us to be able to do that is by utilizing the jump jets. That's how the turtle moves up and down. And actually, before I go out of the water, what I will note is that I don't know if other people will notice it, but within the water, while you're swimming around, while you're using the jump jets, they will actually move faster. So you will gain more elevation faster while you're using the turtle in the water.
This person in my skiff.
Yeah, they're
please.
like my skiff. Your skiff's okay. It's very durable.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah. But so that's pretty much it for underwater.
Yeah. Let's see, what else have we got? I think we've
Yeah,
covered
some
most of it.
masteries.
You all are going to get to try this. Yeah. You all are going to get to try this next week in the End of Dragons beta event starting on Tuesday the 30th. You're going to start with Siege Turtle Mastery 1. We are going to give you a little sneak peek at the Siege Turtle Masteries just so you can see the whole line and see what's going to be happening in End of Dragons once it's live. Once again, Mark, I'm keeping our secrets, so please don't show my screen. All right, let's go ahead and go through them, starting with the Siege Turtle Level 1. The first one is Turtle Health Boost, and that will increase your turtle's health.
Yeah.
Second one is Slam Mastery. This is what Nick was talking about earlier. Your turtle's slam will now also generate 25% of an artillery shot. And this is the thing that we were talking about earlier, where you regen your artillery in the gunner seat by running around. The faster you run, the more it regens, but also when you use that Slam Mastery skill, you get a little bit of an artillery shot back too. So that helps regenerate it faster. Improved jump jets, which would have been awesome when you were getting out of the water, but
would have been,
it still does its thing. Your turtle can now jump farther and higher using his jump jets. Power Shell is a protective skill. This allows you to convert incoming damage into ammo from the passenger seat. And you have a little protective shell beyond your actual turtle shell. And finally, Sharing is Caring. This gives your turtle's health boost to all of your other mounts too. So this one is useful for all of your mounts. All right.
Agreed. Yeah. Sorry. One
I'm
second.
gonna hide that.
Yeah.
We have to like take little pauses and make sure that we're not showing anything off. Like we've talked about before, the game is a work in progress. We want to leave tons for you to discover. So we're trying not to give away all of our secrets.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that we could actually like also visually demonstrate some of those differences. So like if you were to look at my client as an example, what
Nick
you'll
is
see
good
is what you'll see now is that like the turtle hovers a little bit higher now that I've done that. Let's see. I think it also mentions in the tooltip. Yeah. So now you'll see that also within the tooltip, ammo per hit is increased, and also the health has also been increased as well. So just things like that. Wanted to kind of give a little bit of visuals to that. I think also as well, if Ruby wants to show off the shield skill.
Yeah. Wait, let me come back. Wait.
Yeah, I'm right behind you. There we go.
All right. So that shield skill is my 3 skill.
And then yeah, it just puts a giant bubble around us.
And we will die much less quick.
Yeah. Something else to actually note. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but just in case, when we're talking about ammo regeneration and we're talking about the season 4 and 5 skills, the Bond of Life once again heals and increases the turtle's health, and that also increases dependent on whether you have the mastery or not, as well as the Bond of Vigor not only increases your endurance for your jet fuel, but it also increases the rate of ammo reacquisition. So when you use that plus the boost plus max speed, you're just going to be constantly firing them out. It's really exciting. And then of course we've got standard mount stealth and the Bond of Faith. So those are just the kind of things that I also wanted to mention that the team wanted to make sure that we could better integrate and give additional value to both those who get the turtle and go back into those old expansions and content and get that, as well as additional value for those who already have those things and get the turtle. So definitely wanted to make sure that we could take some time to integrate those things and make them worth it.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk about World versus World a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's something that's on everybody's mind, right? It's called the Siege Turtle. So I know a lot of people out there that play World v. World are probably thinking like, Siege Turtle.
Hey.
Like, does Turtle do siege damage in World v. Worlds? And the unfortunate answer right now is no. What we decided for the expansion is that we will not be shipping the turtle within World v. World, and will not be allowing it to be usable in World v. World. And the reason for that is mostly just that with the expansion coming out and with all these additions of things like the elite specs as well as the alliances or world restructuring and things like that, we wanted to make sure that we didn't introduce too many variables of disruption for the expansion and when everything drops, to help make sure that people like Cal aren't like just forced to change a lot of stuff at the exact same time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's off the table. What the team decided on is that like if we do add it, it's going to be because people like yourselves and all the players have decided that they really, really want it, right? So through kind of community desire and with community influence, we will make the decision on whether we should or should not add it. But something to also note there, I think actually our current design director said it best, we're only going to do it if it makes World v. World better. So something to note is that if we were to add it to World v. World at a later time, we would make sure that it doesn't break the game mode and that it fits. So it would be different, right? It would be a highly modified version of the Siege Turtle, very similar to what you see with the Warclaw in PvE versus World v. World. But yeah, I think that's everything for World v. World. Yeah. Something else I think that is worth mentioning is that I think some people might have actually noticed this with the current the T-set chairs, because I think it's similar functionality there.
Oh yeah.
But you actually, while you have a passenger, you have the ability to teleport around with them. So as an example, I'm gonna cheat real quick, and I think.
We can show one of our screens. I'm good. I'm safe.
Yeah.
So Nick is teleporting.
Or trying to, anyways. Aha! That's
The
why.
typos are happening again.
I'm not used to this keyboard, but yeah. So as you can see, I just teleported to back over to the starting area that we were at earlier, and Ruby was pulled with me. So that means that you're not just taking your friends like on a run, right? Like you can take them to different parts of the map as well, utilizing teleports and waypoints. I think something else that is worth mentioning because I'm sure that a lot of people are also curious about this, is that for the acquisition method, we can't really talk about what it is or like how it's built out, but what we can say is that it is going to be faster for players in acquisition than the Skyscale was, as an example. So for those people who are like, is it going to be comparable to Skyscale in duration and investment? The answer is it's going to be a lot simpler to get, a lot faster. And I think that's pretty much everything.
I dismounted while you were talking and hopped out over here just to show off that my turtle looks a little bit different from yours.
It does look a little bit different from mine.
So just like with the other mounts, even on the base mount, you can dye yours to kind of make it your own. We have a few dye colors available in the game. So I just went with a harvest gold. I went with like the most offensive pink I could find the first time. It was a lot. But yeah, I went with something a little more subdued this time, and Nick is changing his now.
Yeah,
I like that one.
I'm like cycling through. That's brick. If you're talking about the one that I'm using right now, that's brick.
Yeah, that looks good.
And then also something to mention is that very similar to the other base level mounts, each of them has only a singular dye channel on launch, and that's going to be the same with the turtle. So you will have one dye channel for when the turtle is released, and it dyes the shell specifically. Just for those who are curious about what parts it's dyeing particularly, it's just a shell for right now. And if I'm not mistaken, that's literally all of it.
I do want to call out one more thing.
Go for it.
This is just like a fun little animation thing, because we've talked before about how much work and the care and the details that everybody puts into these mounts. And if you look at my turtle, I'm just going to move away from you, Nick. As he is, no, you're fine. As he spins around, as I'm moving around, the cannons are following me. My siege cannons are following the way to point in the direction that they're going to go.
I actually didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
right now.
it's a fun touch, but it's also a helpful visual indicator, like which way is this going? How weird is this going to be depending on what I do with ground targeting? So yeah, kudos to everybody who worked on this, because like we said, it's still a work in progress. We're still improving things and putting those final touches on, but it already looks fantastic.
Yeah, and shout out to people like Ben Kirsch, who is the main designer for this, and everybody on the animation team worked on it, programmers as well, trying to make sure that it felt solid. Like this is a staple piece and kind of like one of the key features that we're shipping for this expansion. It's like one of the back of the box features. So the team really wanted to take some time to make sure that it felt good, that it felt, what's the word I'm looking for, like worth the investment, worth the time, and things like that. So we just hope that y'all feel the same way.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for that time, Nick.
Of course.
So I promised you all some more things. We're going to take a very short break, and then we will come back, and Cal's got some updates about the elite specializations for End of Dragons. So stick around. We'll be back in just a minute. Everybody panic.
Should I run away? You know what? I'm going to stick around. I'm going to be...
Thanks again for hanging out with us here on Guild Chat today. So, like we've been talking about, beta's next Tuesday. How have the elite specs changed? Cal is here to tell us that. So, take it away, Cal.
Great, thanks. So beta 4, we obviously got a lot of feedback throughout the first 3 betas and all the elite specializations. So a lot of things have changed. And for today, we're just going to do at least for the stream, we're going to do a very high level, kind of more organized overview of a handful of the key feedback items that were actioned. But right after the stream, we'll also be posting the full list of update notes on the forums, so look forward to that. We didn't want to go over every single specific thing here on the stream because we'd be here for a very, very long time, given, I mean, you guys know my history of talking about elite specs, so we wanted to keep it really nice and contained, talk about the main important things, and leave the rest for all of you to see on the forums.
I'm literally over here setting that up right now.
Awesome. All right, so let's just hop into it. We'll run through these in the same order that we initially revealed them. So we're kicking things off with the Virtuoso. And so the first thing we see here, kind of one of the big feedback points is, well, what about blade generation, clone generation? And you know, we increased the clone cap to 5 for this character, obviously new blade songs, really, and then of course being able to maintain blades across combat. It really felt like we wanted to give a little bit more blade generation. This is something we saw a lot of feedback around as well. I end the fight with a shatter and then I have nothing left. And it feels a little bit weird to have this functionality that doesn't really do anything because by the time I get in my next fight, I don't have any more clones. And so one of the things that we've added here is that a piece of one of the minor traits for the Virtuoso is now just going to generate a clone every 10 seconds. Whether you're in combat, whether you're not in combat, you'll just be constantly generating clones or blades. Confused myself already, but you know, get some more natural blade generation there, so you'll pretty much always have something ready to go at the start of a fight. In addition to that, we fixed up some interactions with stuff like mirror images, decoy, these skills that for base Mesmer, for other Mesmer specializations, you need a target because you're spawning a clone to go attack something. The Virtuoso will no longer need a target to activate those skills, so you can still just stock blades while you're out of combat, moving around, getting ready for the next fight. So with additional blade generation, that's going to play into kind of, you know, it's going to enable shatters a bit more. So this character becomes a lot more shatter focused. And one thing we've added there to kind of play into that identity is the minor master tier trait is now going to give you a damage bonus every time you shatter. This is going to be a duration based thing. So it's like, I think it's 5% for both power and condition every time you shatter for some duration. So it's going to create this really nice flow of combat where you're going to be, you know, building up blades, shattering, get the damage bonus, press some more buttons, get more blades, shatter again, keep that damage bonus going, and so on. So importantly, that does increase condition damage because another feedback point that we saw a lot about is condition builds, and they're just not as exciting as, say, the power builds are. And so we've added, you know, the damage bonus there, tuned up some of the numbers on some of the bleeding and some of the other condition applications for this character, just to make sure that condition build feels a little bit more relevant than it did during the first beta. So next up, we're going to talk about Harbinger. We've got some pretty exciting stuff going on here. So first things first, first bullet point here is the life force drain. This is the thing that Harbinger did when you were in combat and you were not at full health. It would constantly drain your life force to heal you, convert that into healing. And this was kind of an interesting design decision originally, that we wanted to create kind of this, you know, a little bit more sustain, but also create kind of this push-pull between building up life force and managing your life force and your defensive play, that you would be able to have enough life force to get a good shroud. But when we saw a lot of feedback around and just, you know, playing with it more and more, it didn't feel particularly good. It wasn't particularly fun to play with, just fighting against your own life force generation. So we just kind of pulled out entirely. So it's also going to be, you know, a bit less sustained for the character, which is probably reasonable as well. But it's just going to make sure that you always have that life force available for a shroud when you want it. Another thing we've looked at is updating the blight mechanic a little bit. So first thing off, it's going to be a little bit less punishing. It's down to like 1.5% max health per stack instead of 2%. But we've also added some more interactions, what we're calling blight threshold, which you're going to see on some of the shroud skills and then on all of the elixir skills. And what blight threshold says is, you know, if you use this skill with a certain amount of blight on you, there's going to be a bonus effect, and it's going to consume some blight from you. So it's going to create this really interesting management of generating enough blight through elixirs and shroud to then get these payoffs from also elixirs and shrouds. It's going to really create some particular decision-making points in how you want to use those abilities. And so that's one update to the elixirs. We also wanted to do some further updates because the elixir skills in beta 1, not the most interesting, you know, press a button, get some boons. Obviously you did have the boon share trait, but still pretty simplistic gameplay. So now all of the elixirs are going to be ground targeted, and you can throw the elixir. The area effect is going to be some damage, it's going to be some condition application. You're still going to get the boon on yourself regardless of where you throw the elixir. And it's also going to allow the boon sharing to be in that ground target area. So a little bit more flexibility in when you go into that boon share build, the positioning that you'll need to have to enable that playstyle. So next up, we're going to move into the will bender. Most importantly, so this first bullet point, looking at some animation cleanup, this is something we've actually done across a lot of specializations, looking at like things like aftercast and movement locks and stuff like that, which makes things feel a little bit more clunky. It's a really important thing to call out for Willbender specifically because it is, this character that is supposed to be fluid in movement and really, that high mobility assassin-y character, so we want to make sure that these things feel pretty good. So importantly, we're going to see something like Justice is going to come out a lot faster. The uppercut's going to be a lot faster. The aftercast is going to be a lot less impactful there. And then also stuff like, Whirling Light, Flash Combo, these skills that previously would lock you into an animation, they're going to allow you to move freely instead. So you'll have a lot more control over where you're positioning your character in the fights. Another thing we're going to have is similar to Virtuoso, some improvements to condition builds. Willbender was obviously pretty intentionally designed to be a power character, sword offhand, and a lot of mobility and combat traits like that. But it is still an extension of the Guardian, so we have not just natural burning application. There's a lot of traits that care about burning, so it felt like there needed to be a condition build. This is something that we saw a lot of feedback around as well. So we added a couple more tools for that build to exist. There's a new trait that's going to cause Willbender Flames to apply burning on hit, and also the damage bonus from Lethal Tempo is going to give both strike and condition damage bonus. Just a few more tools for that Condi build to work. And finally, we're going to have actually access to AoE Alacrity for this character. So Phoenix Protocol, the Grandmaster trait, obviously gave Alacrity to the Guardian themselves, the Willbender themselves. That is now shareable through Battle Presence, which is the Virtues trait that says Virtue Resolve now affects an area around you. It really only makes sense that that would allow you to give AoE Alacrity through Phoenix Protocol. So now it does. We'll see if any super Alacrity builds show up. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be a absolute Alacrity source that we see, something like Spectre or the other Alacrity sources in the game. But the option is there for all of you guys to try it out in Beta 4. Next up, we're going to talk about the Vindicator. So we have some updates to the dodges and then Alliance stance. So we'll talk about the dodges first. Big feedback point is, again, just clunkiness of movement. And when you come crashing down in any of the dodge animations, I guess they all have the same animation, come crashing down with any of the dodge skill, you just you were stuck in place for a little bit amount of time, and that just created a lot of not the best gameplay experience. And it was there to really sell the impact, but we do really care about how this character actually plays in the world, so it's going to just have a lot less end lag there. You'll be able to move much more quickly out of the dodge. Another minor update, I guess not a minor update, but another update to the dodges that we've kind of rebalanced all of them around 100 endurance. So previously we had 3 different dodges that had 3 different costs, 150, 100, or 50. They're all now going to cost 100 endurance, so we've rebalanced the effects to kind of as needed to be pretty on rate outside of any buffs or nerfs that we wanted to do. And the important note here is that it just makes it a lot more convenient, I guess. Well, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, so there we go. Great live show here. But it's just a lot easier to balance endurance generation and making sure it feels good for all of the dodges, because something that gives 50 endurance previously was a lot better for the 50 endurance dodge than it was for the 150 endurance dodge, because you just get the full dodge. But now it's going to be a lot more consistent across all dodges, so that should help make sure that all 3 of these things are potentially viable. And then next up, we'll hop into Alliance stance and talk about, we'll just run through this real quick. Most importantly, the skills will not automatically flip anymore, and there's people will probably be pretty excited by that. You can now much better define the playstyle that you want. If you want to just focus on the Kurzik side or focus on the Luxon side, you can. We've added the ability to flip that manually through a new F3 skill. We split out the skill flip mechanic from Energy Meld and just put it on its own separate skill with a 10-second cooldown. So you can now manually control when you flip between Kurzik and Luxon if you feel the need to. So pretty big usability update for the what is this character called? Vindicator.
It's a lot.
There are a lot of words to remember here. But next up we have the Blade Sworn. So there's one thing I forgot to mention at the start here is that there's a lot more changes to these than are just shown on these bullet points here. These are just kind of general categories that feel natural to talk about in this kind of super speedrun version. So the big point here is talking about Dragon Trigger. There are other changes that you'll see in the patch notes once we get there. But some updates to Dragon Trigger and Dragon Slash. So one of the main feedback points around this mechanic is that it is just overly slow. I mean, it's a 5-second channel for the maximum value Dragon Slash, and it's not super realistic and competitive. Even in like PvE modes, it's a lot more difficult to use effectively. And we agree that, again, that's something that makes the character just feel a lot more clunky. So the flow cost per charge is going to be down to 5 instead of 10, so it's only going to cost you half of your bar to get a full charge Dragon Slash, and it's also going to charge twice as fast. So instead of half a second per charge, it's now quarter of a second. So it'll be 2.5 seconds for a full charge versus 5. Just some opportunities to make that a lot more accessible, a lot more usable in regular gameplay situations. We got a couple of minor trait interaction updates as well. The Immortal Dragon trait, the heal one, is also going to give you protection based off the number of charges, and Unyielding Dragon will give you some number of might stacks based off how many charges. The last Grandmaster trait is, of course, Daring Dragon, I believe, which is now going to be, even more exciting with the reduced energy cost. Now it's maxing at 5 charges, which is 25 adrenaline, 25 flow, which means you can fire off, 4 or 5 or maybe even 6, depending on what other external adrenaline sources you have, back to back to back with that Daring Dragon trait. Next up, we have the Catalyst. So saw some of these on the Ekvald stream a little bit. The Jade Sphere, we kind of joked for these bullet points we should just put Jade Sphere, Jade Sphere, Jade Sphere, Jade Sphere, because that is very much the most, problematic. It definitely was problematic in its implementation, how the Jade Sphere was just incredibly clunky to use in terms of gameplay. The 15-second duration in a single point, it was not super realistic to any real gameplay situations, and then also the transitioning field as you switch attunements made it very difficult to get the combos you want, get the matches you want on your augments, get the boons that you want. Everyone just wants quickness, and so we went back and we tweaked this Jade Sphere mechanic such that it is now 4 separate skills, 1 per attunement. It is going to be an upfront 10 energy cost to deploy that field for 5 seconds, and that field will not change elements. So if I'm in Earth, I deploy the Earth prot field, poison field. That will always be that pulsing prot poison field, even if I switch attunements into fire. This also means that you can fire off like up to 3 in a row. If you have 30, drop Earth, switch to fire, drop fire, and so on and so forth. So you can get some potentially more exciting stuff, or you could just pop into air and use fresh air to always have access to quickness over and over and over. So that should help with the flow of the character a lot, and also help with the augments. But even though, another thing with the augments that I want to say is that the matching mechanic we thought was cool. We saw some feedback, the matching mechanic is cool, but these skills are just too weak. And you need the bonus effect to feel as though this isn't the same power level as like a more natural utility skill. And that's definitely pretty accurate. So for most of the augments, not the elite, we'll talk about that one a little bit later, or we'll just leave it for the patch notes, because that one's actually pretty crazy. We made a pretty significant mechanical change to the elite skill that you guys can take a look at later. But all of the other augments will have the previous bonus effect rolled in baseline, and then you have a new bonus effect that is either going to be cooldown reduction or duration bonus, depending on which augment. So like the fire damage bonus is going to last longer if you use it in the fire field. The earth shield block will have a reduced cooldown if you use it in the earth field. So those should just, increase the power level of the augments. Also plays into a little bit of those defensive improvements that we had on that list. More defense from the earth block, better stun break on the air stun break, a little bit more healing access from water 4, and earth 4 is now also going to give some barrier in addition to the aura that it does when you successfully block an attack. We're still going to be keeping a close eye on like Catalyst defense, making sure it feels tanky enough without blowing out too hard. So we made a few adjustments for Beta 4, and we'll see how those play out. I'm going to flip my note sheet over to the next page real quick, and we're going to talk about Spectre. So Spectre, we actually saw a lot of really positive feedback around the Spectre. So some of these bullet points here are a lot more targeted on very specific things. The first one being Consume Shadows, and this is the trait that says when you exit Shroud, consume all of your Shadow Force to heal in an area. And this was really one of the primary ways that Spectre could create more of that area of effect support, as opposed to the more single target of the Shroud Tether or the Scepter skills, the Spectre Scepter skills. But the gameplay around Consume Shadows is another case where the gameplay was just not very compelling. The optimal way to play is just pop in, immediately exit, because that's going to give you the maximum value, maximum heal. So we've tuned the mechanic a little bit where being in Shroud is actually now going to give you stacks of a buff that says consume shadows is more effective. So the longer you stay in, the more you'll be building up to that maximum effectiveness, and over time you will hit that maximum effectiveness, at which point you will exit and consume all of your remaining Shadow Force to get that heal value. So this is just going to make you want to use, I mean, we want you to go into Shroud and use those Shroud skills. We don't want players to feel that the optimal way to play is just ignore one of the major mechanics of Repression. So this should really allow you to dig in and play with all of those abilities in addition to getting value from Consume Shadows. The next thing on the list was an adjustment to Endless Night. So this is the beam portion of Scepter Pistol Dual Skill. It was just getting a bit too much quickness access. Our primary goal for Spectre was to be more of that alacrity source, and Endless Night just allow you to be alacrity source and a solid quickness source and, you know, a pretty decent healer, which is just a bit overtuned for what we're looking for in a support character. So by reducing the target cap down to 1, it's still going to have access to some quickness, but it's hopefully not going to be a primary quickness source while doing everything else, and just give it a little bit more of a well-defined role within our group content. So up next we have the Untamed. So big one at the top, pet control keybinds. Obviously we touted this character as like, hey, here's more direct pet control over your pet's abilities, but we overwrote attack my target and return to me, so you can't actually control your pet the way you want. Those have been added back here. We've adjusted the UI for the Untamed, and also the Mechanist will see that same bullet point, where attack my target and return to me are back. You combine them to whatever you want, and that will just give you the full suite of pet controls that we were really looking for this character. On top of that, we got a very big feedback point about the Untamed is the interaction with the Unleash mechanic. And these were already coming up during the Beta 3 live stream preview. I was sitting here and Ruby was reading chat and we were asking, hey, what about Unleash interactions for other weapons? And it's like, well, you know, we talked about this ambush style thing. Didn't really go forward within the beta for Beta 3, but we continuously got more and more feedback around, you know, the Unleash mechanic just feels a little bit incomplete. And so we have gone back and we've polished up those ambush skills, and they will be in for Beta 4, where not every time, but there's going to be a timer. We'll talk a little bit about this on the next bullet point, but every so often when you enter the Unleash state, you will flip over your auto attack into this Unleashed ambush skill, and it's going to have a different ability per weapon. Some of them are, I mean, I think they're all pretty cool, but some of them are maybe more exciting than others, as we've seen. I mean, it's the same thing with Mesmer Ambush or any burst skill. But I think, again, they're all pretty cool. So that just adds another layer of interaction with the Unleash mechanic. Cantrips are also going to see a bonus depending on your state. It will give you a little, it's kind of a variable buff. So for example, the heal is going to give you super speed if you're in Unleashed state, and if you're not Unleashed, it's going to give you a stack stability. And so that bonus is different per cantrip. Just a little bit more flavor to play into this Unleash mechanic. Another big bullet point there was the stance swap cooldown. So this created a lot of situations where you could get kind of stuck in a bad state, or you never wanted to switch stances because you would be kind of in the wrong mode for too long. You know, that 10-second cooldown didn't feel super great, especially when you're trying to set up the combos that you want. You want the CC and defense, switch into Unleash, get the offensive combo off of that, but it just didn't play really well when you were already in offense. You had to wait, you know, a very long time. So we reduced that cooldown down to 1 second, and that's why the Unleashed ambush skill is going to be controlled by a timer as opposed to every time you unleash. But that's just going to give you a lot more control over when you have access to the Unleashed pet skills, when you have access to the other side of the hammer, and not be too punished to make that decision and look to, you know, find the different lines for gameplay here. Quick final note here, the player material effect that you see when the player is in that Unleashed state got a lot of feedback around, you know, the conflict it has with Fashion Wars, especially as a permanent buff. It's a little bit different than like a Necro Shroud or Hollowsmith Forge, which are all temporary things, just always having this effect on you. Disrupts character looks a bit more, so it's going to fade out after a period of time after you enter Unleashed state, and you'll still have all the bonuses of being Unleashed, but that material effect will fade out after a little bit of time. So we have one, last but not least, we have the Mechanist. And a couple, obviously, pet control keybinds, same stuff, attack my target, return to me. Those are now available with the Mechanist. And then we have the big category here is the updates to the Jade mech. And like I said before, there's changes that do not fall into the same bucket that you'll see in the patch notes, but this is kind of the main thing to talk about for this preview live stream here, is the Jade mech. And first thing we'll throw out there is that the mech is going to be a little bit less powerful. We saw even competitive modes, or not even outside of competitive modes, the mech was a little bit overperforming relative to where we want it to be. So we've just reduced the base stats in a lot of cases where the power, it was like 1370 something, and now it's going to be 1000 instead. So just a reduction to power, reduction to some bulkiness from that, from the vitality, the toughness. And those numbers are just going to line up a lot nicer with inheriting stats from the mechanists themselves. On top of that, we've also reduced the cooldown on the mech resummon. So previously it was 100 seconds. Mech dies, you're stuck without the mech for 100 seconds. It feels really bad. The common feedback we saw is, the mechanist just doesn't feel like it does a whole lot without the mech. And the mace is cool, the signets are cool, but the mech is obviously the big primary gameplay element. So when it goes on a 100-second cooldown, it just kind of sucks. And you want to, everyone hold the elite skill to resummon the mech rather than using the Jade Buster cannon, which is the super cool thing it's supposed to do. So the cooldown is down to 50 for Beta 4. We'll be keeping a close eye on that, and we'll be reevaluating, like, does mech strength need to be adjusted even more and the cooldown need to come down even more, or so on and so forth. We'll be evaluating what the right numbers for those cooldown and mech balance is. The last big point to talk about for the mech is the skill responsiveness, and this is actually something that we saw a lot of, where you try to use a skill, you command the mech to use a skill, and it would just not use that skill. And the reason that would happen is because the mech had a couple of other skills outside of its auto attack chain that it prioritized very highly. If it was going to use Jade Siphon, it's going to use Rocket Punch, it's just going to ignore you when you tell it to do something because it has a better idea. The mech, it thinks it's a little bit smarter than you, so it's like, I'm just going to use my own skill instead. And that obviously just made the gameplay feel really clunky. So Jade Siphon is actually not going to be a skill anymore. The mech will never use that ability, and that's another kind of power level adjustment to the mech, give it a few less things to do. And then Rocket Punch has been pulled out of the mech's AI package, and it's instead going to be used anytime the mechanist uses Mace 3. You use Mace 3, the mech will use Rocket Punch at the same time, get that nice CC into CC. More control over the CC skill feels really good there, and as a result of this, you're just going to have a lot more responsiveness when you use it to use one of your F1, F2, F3 command skills. The mech will pretty much always be there and always be ready. So again, that's this super high-level, quick summary of all the changes to 9 Elite Specialization for Beta 4. We'll be posting the patch notes pretty much right after this stream ends, and you'll be able to see the full list of changes, and obviously you guys will get to play with all these things. We're expecting a lot more feedback around all these things based on Beta 4, so obviously go on the forums, tell us what you think, and we'll be continuing to iterate on all these things as we look ahead toward End of Dragon's launch. And so now I'll toss back to Ruby, and we'll wrap things up.
Thanks, Cal. As always, you're a hero for going through all of that stuff, so thank you very much. We will have those live on the Profession Forum, on the main Profession Forum as soon as we are done here on the show. We do have a couple more things for you, though. One of the things that we have been working on all year, and you as players, is the Living World Replay ongoing meta achievement. Seasons of the Dragons, there's a legendary amulet that is that reward. We're getting close to where people can start getting that in their own legendary armory, so we thought we'd give a little preview today of what the effect looks like once you've got it equipped. Mark, my monitor is safe now. Yeah. All right, so that is the effect on the Prismatic Champion's Regalia. Just turn it around so you can see the whole thing. And that is what that's going to look like. But that is not the only preview we have for you. Next week, November 30th, also it brings the beta event, but it also is going to bring some new character customization options for your character creation. That's coming on Tuesday, so we thought we would show you a few screenshots of previews. So here you go. All right, there's a little something for everybody. I hope you enjoyed that preview. I cannot wait to see what everybody does with their characters next week once we have these new character creation and customization options. So, beta event next Tuesday starting 11:30. End of Dragons launches in February of 2022. We are getting closer and closer. It's available for pre-purchase right now. If you pre-purchase End of Dragons, you get some cool bonuses that you can use on your account now, and then some other cool bonuses that you'll be able to use on your account after launch. We are also working with DX Racer for next week's beta. We're giving away another DX Racer gaming chair. This one here, we are going to give that away along with some Guild Wars 2 gems to a lucky winner. The way you enter is by logging in to play the beta. Every day you play the beta is one entry to win this sweepstakes. We also are working with DX Racer for an End of Dragons gaming chair that you can pre-purchase now. Pre-purchase lasts until November 30th. Next Tuesday is a big day. There's a lot happening. If you are thinking about pre-purchasing this, get that in before pre-purchase ends next Tuesday. We are almost at the end of that. We also have some Black Friday sales coming up. Like I mentioned, here in America, this is Thanksgiving week, and with that comes Black Friday. So starting on the 26th, Path of Fire, half price. Guild Wars 2 gems, 20% off. You can check our website now. Just check guildwars2.com. There's an article listing out all of the retailers with links where you can pick those up depending on where in the world you are. Also check the Gem Store daily. Starting on Friday, we're going to have daily sales for Black Friday for the next 4 days. Next show is December 3rd. We are going to be telling you about a whole lot of End of Dragons gameplay features. So follow our channels so you don't miss us, and we will see you then. Now let's all go to the forums and we'll get those notes up and running. See you next time. Thanks, guys.